Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. It is the 25th. It's Wednesday. We do get a little bit of news today, so maybe today will be a little bit interesting, but man, we are definitely just in the depths of the summer doldrums. Not a whole lot happening, especially yesterday. We'll come over to the charts. Man, I mean, look at how much the S&P has been moving, and then look at yesterday. Like, barely moved at all. And in the overnight session, still very, very tight. However, there is one thing that I think we should take note of, and that is that the rates have been coming off. So there were attempts overnight to try and boost it up, but it looks like the rates are getting a lot higher. So, of course, that could all just get wiped out very easily, but, you know, given the right news. But it does look like that the Treasury bulls are kind of giving it up going into this Jackson Hole meeting, which could end up being really important, right? Now, oil is also doing really well, right? Oil did well yesterday. It's doing well overnight. Gold gave up a little bit of their gains. I don't know if that's significant. They're going to probably tag around that 1800 level again for a while. They just seem to really love that price, right? Copper's it's okay. And when we come over to the currencies, you can see, well, you know, the dollar fell quite a bit earlier in the week, but then yesterday, fairly constrained. I would say it's still under pressure, but very constrained. And Bitcoin gave up a little bit yesterday, too. I don't think that that's really significant, but some people seem to feel like it was a bad day for cryptocurrencies yesterday. I think they just spoiled. All right. When you look at markets overall, you see there's a lot of red there. Orange. I mean, on my chart, it's orange, but you can see that it's not, you know, the days past is like everything would be blue. Today, everything's slightly down overnight. And I'm not really seeing like a whole lot of like significant news. The only big thing that I've come across was like TSMC, which is a chip maker that makes chips for chip makers. They make some really important substrates that advanced chip makers like Intel and AMD need to make chips. And they increased their prices like 20%. So they're up pretty big overnight, but some of these semiconductors could get hit off of that. So that's the only like really big piece of macro news that I'm seeing out there. This room is hot again. It's going to be like that. I'm going to be like sweating and stinky again. Let's check. What does what does my Nest say? Well, I switched which room it was trying to normalize to, and it turned on. So let's see. Uzi. We're living in an alternate reality that resembles biblical depictions of. Oh man. Well, you know, yesterday I think one of the big pieces of news was that the change in new Delta cases was declining. So it looks like we're past the Delta wave. I don't know if that really gives me too much comfort because there's just going to be another wave and they're going to just freak out about the other wave. So what are you going to do? But I'm hoping that over the next quarter that they don't talk about that as much. It's kind of interesting that, Joe Biden has really been trying to get away from the Afghanistan thing. And one of the ways that he's been trying to do it is, coronavirus and mask mandates and all, and getting people fighting over that. But it's not really... It's dying off. It's like a declining issue at the moment, But then will the Lambda variant come along? Yeah, I don't know how long it would take for that to become an issue. But for the short term, it's not. So we'll see. We'll see. It's probably a couple of months ahead, right? When I remember the first time I heard about Delta variant was like in the spring, right? It took a long time, but I also don't think that the Lambda variant it's possible for it to be quite the same thing. So like the Lambda variant is a little bit more aggressive, right? Or not aggressive, like it's more harmful, but it doesn't spread as much, was my understanding, right? The R factor on it was lower though, but it also is more resistant to the vaccine. So will the Lambda variant be as big of a deal as the Delta? I'm not so sure about that. Excuse me. Well, just right here off of the open, you can see once again, it's like there is somebody out there in the treasuries trying to buy them. They can tweak the mRNA vaccine super quick though, 2 to 3 months I read. Oh, yeah, probably. I mean, booster shots are definitely. You remember when they were like, "Oh, we don't think that we're going to need booster shots and all that sort of thing," and we just kind of laughed, like. Yeah, it's going to be a booster that you get every year, for sure. ECB's lane, if federal policy causes spillovers, the ECB is willing to move. Okay. New delivery technology. Oh man, you're just getting. Okay, so here's the news. So durable goods, core durable goods, 0 spot 7 versus spot 5. Cancer and HIV vaccine potential? Really? Well, this seems to be moving them. In the treasury here, I could probably hit into it, right? This one I could probably, I could sit that. You just get me thinking about all this stuff that Joe Biden's been saying about it, because I tell you what, this president, gotta remember when it was Obama, right? A lot of people really hated Obama. And I was, I didn't like him, of course, but I didn't hate him. I actually thought at many times he was way more Well, that didn't work out. I thought that many times he was way more moderate than I thought he was going to be. And he played way more into the U.S. security apparatus and, like getting involved in Syria and then totally continuing all of the domestic spying programs and all that sort of stuff. That really surprised me. I didn't think that Obama would do that stuff. But Joe Biden, man, it's like every little thing that he does, it's not just like I don't like it. It's like, oh my gosh, this is like absolutely the most awful, terrible thing you could do. You know what I mean? It's like he comes out, U.S. employers, please start requiring your employees to get vaccinated. He's literally begging U.S. corporations to fire you if you don't get the vaccine. Like, are you kidding me? Like, do people realize the possible implications on society of that sort of a thing? Like, it's not good. I can't believe that he's saying this stuff. The Remain in Mexico, that was another one that really made me mad. Like the Remain in Mexico policy, I thought was a good policy and worked, and he got rid of it. The Supreme Court pushed back on that one yesterday. You know, it's something really weird that's been happening a lot lately, though. Maybe it's just that I haven't been following things very well. Is that it? I just haven't been following things very well, because every time that I go and I read a political story, I always have like, okay, so what are the implications on the markets? When is like the deadline in which this would impact markets or the broader world? And they don't say, you can't, it's confusing. I can't seem to figure it out. Like how this whole reconciliation process goes confuses me. Why were Democrats fighting amongst themselves about how the infrastructure bill was going to get put through? Does that mean that the budget is going to be 3.5 trillion or not? And it's like every news story seems to be avoiding the question for some reason. and I get that with the Remain in Mexico policy too. It's like, okay, so what does the Biden administration do after that? They go and they change the rule in a different way, and then it's constitutional. Like, how does that work? How is it that the Supreme Court can say you can't rescind an executive order? That seems off to me, right? It's like they're not answering these questions. It's really, and it makes me extremely suspicious. Because maybe am I the only person that cares about these things? I guess maybe that's just it. But I feel like the media has been failing me lately. It's going to be fun when they mandate healthcare workers get it. You think that a lot of healthcare workers would refuse the vaccine, though? You might be right, because I think that a lot of healthcare workers aren't vaccinated, but like, I also find it hard to believe that so many of them would be so adamant about not taking the vaccine that they would be willing to quit their job over it. I'm kind of tempted to try and take another one here at 3.5 and scalp the 31, but... So the core durable goods being spot 7 versus spot 5 is pretty... That's some inflation there, folks. That's some inflation there. If the E-mini decides to turn up and have a bullish day, I don't know. It's... Yesterday there was kind of like... If I come back over here, I'll share something else here with you. Maybe I shouldn't be sharing this with you, but whatever. Yesterday... Okay. Here's the chart from yesterday. Pretty big puke into the close. Like they came back a ton. But if they're able to get the market above that, like if they opened above 44.88, which is totally possible, only 2 points, that could like really change the picture. On the other hand, if they sold down into, let's just say this spot right here. Let's say below 80. Below 80. It seems like that the options are kind of like on a razor thin edge here, and it could fall either way and might create a little bit more significant of a move, right? Uzi says not a majority, but relatively. I would be surprised if more than 10% of healthcare workers would quit over that. I suppose that 10% is not unrealistic, though, huh? So something that has surprised me is how deep the vaccine hesitancy seems to go. Like here in Utah, for instance, people pretty vaccine hesitant. And we have one of the lowest vaccine rates, although I would say that when you combine it with herd immunity, we have we have herd immunity. When you combine it with the people that have already had it. Okay. But so the LDS Church came out and said, like, you should get vaccinated and be masked and things like that. And even that is not convincing people, which is incredibly surprising to me. Compulsory. No. Compulsory masking and vaccination should have been the policy from the start. Once again, Keller seems to not understand what the Constitution is. Shall we talk about what is constitutional and what is not constitutional with the vaccine mandates? Because it's actually kind of a really interesting legal topic. I did quite a bit of research about it because of a Reddit thread. Like, for instance, there have been court cases where states have had a mandatory vaccine of sorts, and it was upheld. But the federal government has tried to do that, and they shot it down. So that's the first thing. Is it's pretty clear from the law history that the federal government cannot impose a vaccine mandate. But it also matters very much so how that vaccine mandate is imposed. Okay? So if the mandate is you get a fine. Okay, like if your city says if you're not vaccinated, then you have to pay a fine, then that could potentially be upheld. Or at least it's gone to the Supreme Court and it's been upheld before. Okay? But if it was like you're not vaccinated, we're going to send you to a quarantine camp, or we're going to arrest you, because that's what some people want to do, right? Like in Canada, where they had like, if you catch coronavirus, you have to go to this quarantine and all that sort of stuff, right? That would not be upheld, because it's what is it? 14th Amendment rights. Like you can't you can't infringe somebody's life and liberty. So like arresting them and putting them in jail without due process, you can't do that. But you could fine them. If there's a compelling government interest, you could fine them. If it was compulsory, it'd have to be compulsory for the rest of human existence. Yeah. Yeah, it really is a good point, Uzi. Well, that's a little curious how the buyers have been able to just squeeze it up here like this. I think I'm gonna give up on this. Unless someone wants to present empirical evidence that humanity has with vaccine. Well, certainly it hasn't happened before, but managed to eradicate any respiratory virus with animal reservoirs in history? No, probably not. But that would be all the more reason to require the vaccination, right? I don't know. Reduce the spread. Like the thing is COVID zero is a different issue, right? Don't conflate the two. What is going on in Australia and New Zealand, where they're literally pursuing a COVID zero policy, is insane. It's not in line with the science. It's not in line with the recommendations of the World Health Organization, and it's an absolutely tyrannical and ridiculous policy, in my opinion. But that's different from the more people that we get vaccinated, the more lives we'll save, you know? Trying to force them along have the opposite. I think you're probably right. Certainly among the people that have not gotten the vaccine so far, forcing it and having a fine and having the president come up and say, fire them if they won't take it, is not going to increase the number of people that are willing to get it. It's going to have the exact opposite effect. But I don't think that's why Biden is doing it, right? Biden is doing it for political reasons. In fact, really, it's all of these guys are doing it for political reasons. That's what's kind of disturbing about it to me, is that, Joe Biden says, well, actually, all of these politicians, what they want to do is they want to go to their next election and say, look at the vaccine percentages that we got. They think that their success is related to how many people they can get to take the vaccine. Like, that's really, like, because that's the way that the leaders have been doing it. Like, that's what they've been bragging about. If you have a high vaccination rate, you brag about it to the rest of the world community. Right? That's why Joe Biden, and then he thinks, okay, Afghanistan is really terrible. Probably the public likes me more on the coronavirus. So I'm going to try and change the conversation back to the coronavirus and attacking them darn Republicans for not getting vaccinated, even though it's not Republicans that are not getting vaccinated. I bet that once the contractually obligated supply from Operation Warp Speed is exhausted, they'll declare victory and the shot will be relegated to an annual option like the flu and pneumonia. Maybe. You don't think that they would just, increase the... You don't think that they would just do another contract? Because people will have to pay for them afterwards? Why wouldn't the government just pay for another round? Why wouldn't the government say, well, it's in our interest to make sure that they continue to produce a lot of it, and it just becomes like a perpetual benefit that they provide to the vaccine companies? Then it becomes a budget. Is it too expensive? Is it really that expensive? I guess it's like a $100 thing per person, isn't it? What you're saying, though, is that if you don't get vaccinated before they run out, I don't know if the Democrat Party is all that concerned about what the budget is right now. The initial was $1.95 billion. That's not that much. I don't think that's a big deal. I mean, when we're proposing a $3.5 trillion budget, We'll see. We'll see, I guess. It's interesting because when I look at conspiracy talk, not conspiracy talk, I very much avoid TikTok tries to put me on conspiracy talk, and I keep swiping off of it. I can't stand it, guys. Why is this? Am I like the only person on the planet that thinks this way? I come on Reddit. It's the worst on Reddit. I come on Reddit. Somebody makes a statement about a particular situation, and I say, well, there's no empirical evidence. There's no evidence to the claim that you are making. You can't just say things and expect us all to believe it. You have to prove it, and nobody asks for that. There's this whole thing going on in Portland where Antifa and the Proud Boys had a clash. For starters, they say that the Proud Boys is a white supremacist organization, which isn't true. But then they're all saying, well, they attacked a handicap van. And the Proud Boys are saying that handicap van tried to drive into their little parade, and then a bunch of Antifa guys jumped out of it and attacked them, right? But if you go on Reddit, you don't hear any of that. You go on Reddit, they say they attacked a handicap van. Like, oh yeah, they totally didn't just go and pick a handicap van for the very purpose of trying to agitate them and make them look bad. Like, come on. And they expect people to believe all this without any evidence. Without any evidence. And I see it freaking everywhere on the internet. And I don't get why commenters don't demand actual evidence to some of these wild claims that I see out there. And it is very much alive on the conspiracy side, the right-wing conspiracy side of the internet too. They think that the only reason the Pfizer vaccine was approved, and the reason that it was approved first, was because they bribed the CDC the most. That's what they think. I mean, there's no why should anybody? You're a neutral observer. Why would you believe that or not believe that? There's no evidence to it. But if you were in on that conspiracy, if you believed in that conspiracy theory, then wouldn't the logical consequence of that be that the government would make them a government benefit forever? Hey, AO. By the way, are you still in that oil long? Because I sure that day, I don't know how I would pick that day as, hey, there's going to be a reversal in oil. But the long-term outlook on oil, from every kind of analysis that I'm looking at, seems to be very positive. I think it was approved at first because Moderna and J&J have myocarditis and blood clot issues. Not a lot statistically relevant, but apparently too much for fast approval. So are you saying that the Pfizer vaccine is the best one? Like, if I'm going to go out and get a vaccine, I should go and do the Pfizer one because it's approved, and that means that it's the most effective and safest? Well, maybe not the most effective, but at least it's the safest. That's what I'm assuming. Yeah, I get you. I get you, Uzi. It's the same thing on the other side. It's like, okay, which one is the best one? The CDC, you tell me which vaccine is best, and back that up with evidence. But they don't do. They approve one of them. They don't really. I haven't seen anything about like why that one and what the decision making process was, and like we don't know. It just kind of happened. You just kind of have to trust them, which I don't think many people do. Smallpox and rinderpest. Smallpox was not a respiratory disease, is it? Smallpox spreads from contact with infected persons. Generally, direct and fairly prolonged face-to-face contact is required to spread smallpox from one person to another. Wait, really? If that is the case, then how was smallpox such a deadly... Because people don't touch face-to-face that often. The only person that I do that to is my wife and my baby. And I'll only do it with the baby because the baby insists on shoving his face into my face for some reason. If there are animal reservoirs that you're worried about, the only makes the case for vaccinating stronger. Well, I again, Uzi seems to be pushing back particularly against the COVID-0 case. He's saying that the policy that Australia is trying to pursue, where we just never have any cases of coronavirus, is unrealistic. So no, what was it? Let me come. There was a Zero Hedge story about it, right? Oh, I exited at 5 p.m. and got back into it. I see. Oh, okay. So it sounds like what you're doing is probably more mechanical. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, come on. Where was it? I want to get the percentages better. It was like something like the effectiveness of the vaccine changed from like 90% to 50% or something like that. There was that. Gunlock warns U.S. is on a roadmap to losing global reserve currency status. You know what? When I first heard that, I was like, you're being crazy, Gunlock. But when I read that story, I was like, you know what? He has a good point. Like, if the United States was to lose its reserve currency status, how would it happen? What would have to happen? And when you go down through all of the things that would have to happen, those are all things that are on track to happen right now. Oh man, I can't find it. I swear that I read that just this morning, but I guess not. But they did. But the virus. The vaccine effectiveness has declined from new variants, right? So you go and you get this COVID-0, you get your whole population vaccinated, and then you open back up and it comes into your population. There's still going to be a certain number of people that are going to catch it and die, right? And kind of the question then at that point is like, how much are you hurting yourself in the interim? If you had the corona, you don't. Well, that seems to be correct from the studies that I've seen. But the studies that I've seen have also said that if you get the vaccine, that you're even better off. I don't know. So we should switch our USD to crypto now. You go, there's, where was it? That Guatemala, that they decided that they're going to be all cryptocurrency and they have like cryptocurrency ATMs on everything. I'm telling you, at some point that is gonna wreck them. Like the next cryptocurrency crash is just around the corner, and when it happens, they're gonna regret it. Mark my words. Nope. Basing your economy on a cryptocurrency is like suicidal, honestly. Your country would be absolutely devastated during a cryptocurrency downturn. But no, what's going to happen? What would happen is that it would no longer be like a dominant reserve currency. It would have to share it with China. That's what would happen, right? Yeah, we'll come back and read it since you guys seem interested. I'm still kind of looking at the E-mini there. It seems like somebody's really pushing it up. This has happened a lot in treasuries, by the way, where like a piece of news will come on and it suggests that we should go a certain way, and so they'll go that certain way, and then they retrace it all. You have the government. It wouldn't be constitutional for sure, Izzy. Like if they came out and there was like a $20 fine, then that would be fine. But if it was like your life is ruined if you don't take the vaccine, it will not hold up to constitutional muster, because they'll say that it inflicts on their 14th Amendment rights. That's really let's. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges, immunities, or citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person in his jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That's the relevant amendment. Okay? So when you're talking about vaccine mandates, that's the thing that matters, right? You can't put them into an internment camp because they didn't take the the vaccine. But you could probably fine them. You could say, well, you can't go to this school. You can pick whatever school you want to go to, but you can't come to this school because you're not vaccinated. They can do that. But like once they take it to a certain level, like at a public school, I'm not sure that would hold up. It depends on whether it is depriving a person of life, liberty, or property. That's the only thing that matters. Like if you're making an argument that life, liberty, or property should be deprived, then like you're wasting your breath, because the Supreme Court's not going to uphold it. And doesn't matter what you say about it here on the internet. Anyways. Public schools require vaccines. Oh, well, yeah, that's right. There are certain vaccines that are often required. I don't know if that one's been tested in court. I don't know. I've never used MT4, David. MT4 is like the one trading application that I would not recommend. But I don't think that there's like a profits. You just go and you know, if I have 4 contracts on and I want to take partial profits, then I go and I put a limit order to sell at a specific price. When it won't be there to exit manually, you'd have to put a limit order in, right? I sure hope that you don't have a live position on, because if you don't know how to do that sort of thing, you shouldn't be trading live yet, my friend. What is he saying? We're running our economy in a way that's almost like we're not interested in maintaining global reserve currency status or the largest military or global, call it superiority or control. And so as long as we continue to run these policies and we're running them more and more aggressively, we're not pulling back on them in any way. We are looking at a roadmap that is clearly headed towards the US dollar losing its sole reserve currency status. He's right. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm worried about losing its reserve currency status anytime soon, but if the Chinese military continues to build up the way that it has, then you're looking at a situation where with the United States being fiscally irresponsible, that they could lose sole global reserve currency status. And it's not even a question of just like how likely it is just if that was going to happen, this is the trajectory that you would have to be on for it to happen. And that is exactly the trajectory that we're on. You know? What? For real, Izzy? That's weird. Okay. Anyways. I'm focused. I'm here on the treasury. Look, they're pushing up again. But look, they're only trading like 100, 200 contracts here. They are totally messing. They are totally messing here with them. The issue is, I don't know if it really makes sense to put a big stink about like getting past 31.5. 134 was kind of like where they got to yesterday. So like, this would be a good spot to range. It wouldn't surprise me for them to get all the way up to like maybe even 03. So now that they're getting kind of an upside action, I don't know if this is the best spot to like make a stand. You know what I mean? What is Peter Dinkoff saying here? Pink hush off. Top story on Bloomberg this morning is about the 13 sequential plus TD price flip on Ethereum. I'm in the camp that this is just circumstance around 61.8%. As long as we stay above 3K by the end of the week, we will qualify a major TD propulsion up on the weekly. Don't fade that. In fact, just stop using DeMark indicators on daily charts. I use NinjaTrader 8 and Jigsaw Day Trader, and I prefer to do all of my execution on Jigsaw. If you go and you look at the video that I put out on Monday, one of the things that happened was I went and I took a trade for the combine through NinjaTrader, and I didn't have. I mean, there's ways to set things up. I don't think that they're as good in as they are in Jigsaw, and that kind of led to a mistake that blew an account. So I really like executing in Jigsaw. MT4 is just kind of like I'd almost say it's kind of like a scummy platform. Like, it's not very well put together, and they have like this algo app store where they basically sell you junk. But yeah, if you're going to trade futures, especially treasury futures, but Jigsaw is the way to go, I say. You know, Jigsaw is all the DOM. All of these DOMs that you see, that's Jigsaw. So that's why you get Jigsaw. Whoa. OnlyFans reverses controversial porn ban, says the Financial Times. OnlyFans has reversed its controversial decision to ban sexually explicit content, with the platform announcing that it had found a way to continue despite obstacles from financial partners. The company announced on Wednesday that it had secured assurances necessary to support a diverse creator community and has suspended the planned October 1st policy change. The sudden change came after founder Tim Stolkowski Kelly told the Financial Times on Tuesday that the ban had come in response to increased resistance from banks, which would cite reputational risk and refuse our business. After announcing the ban last week, OnlyFans faced criticism for shunning the adult performers who had helped it attract its roughly 130 million users. There was also skepticism over whether it could prosper under the new rules that blocked its most prominent user base. Further guidance to the site's nearly 2 million content creators would be communicated later in the day, the company said. The platform, where sex workers, celebrities, and influencers charge fans for pictures, videos, and customized content, increased transactions by 615% to 1.7 billion last year and have been expecting pre-tax profits of 300 million this year. That's in pounds. For some time, UK-based company has tried to attract more mainstream influencers and brands, but it has faced skepticism that it could pivot to non-porn creators while maintaining its growth rates. X-Trader rocks. You know what though, YS, the Jigsaw is better than X-Trader now, I would say. Like, when you get into the TT, is just not as customizable. Jigsaw really took all of the things that were great about X-Trader and just like built on them and made it better. So I would say that it's a better platform. The creator community is so diverse that one specific type of creator. Well, for them, the question still, I think, and there's no data out there on it, but the question is, what percentage of their revenue comes from explicit content versus softcore pornography, right? I'm gonna bet that the bulk of their revenue comes from like cosplayers and not actual like straight up porn. YS says, I know what you mean, but I am an old dog. It just feels snappier. Well, so YS, probably the reason that you feel that way is because the trading technologies data is better. I've gone in and I've tested that. They filter less. They give you faster updates. It is a better data plan. So what you feel is snappier in X-Trader is actually just trading technologies data is better. So if you use TT and Jigsaw instead of using like NinjaTrader and Jigsaw, then you get that. Yes. Oh, okay. You've been in here before. Yeah, your name is familiar, but it's been a long, long time. So welcome back. Feet pics, says Gecko. I told my wife that if she wanted to become a feet picture model that I would be okay with that, but she is absolutely disgusted by feet. That's why it was the joke. That's just like, if you touch her with your feet, she hates that. Nothing she hates more than touching her with her feet. Thoughts and Sims Pro, once only a pipe dream in the early days of the internet, now the future of the digital economy. I don't know, man. I'm opening. Oh, I should probably make an OnlyFans page. The issue that I have with OnlyFans is, one, they take a larger cut, and two, I feel like that now all of a sudden you're split everywhere, right? Like I really hate this. You've got to be on every little platform and you have to be putting effort into every tiny platform. Like, no. I really focus. Okay, I'm on Twitter because the trading community is on Twitter. You have to be on Twitter. Okay, and then I'm on TikTok because you get the discovery, and YouTube, and like that's it. You know, and I have the Patreon, but I would prefer, if you want to contribute, if you want to help the channel out, I would prefer that you click the join button here on YouTube. So if you click the join button here on YouTube, you get access to my indicator suite, like the synthetic dollar index, which you can see in the upper left. Super important. And by the way, this movement here again has been driven by the 6J and the currencies. I think I may need to come over here and take a closer look. Let's see here, duplicate a new tab. Um, 6J. Remove this. Is that right? Oh, okay, yeah, it is right. 6J. Well, now that's really interesting, actually. So when I look at this 6J, there's the movement that we're seeing on the intraday chart is like barely even noticeable on the daily charts. So how much faster is the data from Jigsaw compared to Ninja? No. So when you're using Jigsaw versus NinjaTrader, you're going to be using the same data. You're going to be using Rhythmic or CQG most likely. They can use the same data, and like in terms of like how quickly you get the updates and everything, they're about the same. But Jigsaw, you get like way better control, like how you put an order in and modify the orders and do all this sort of stuff. I can come in here and I can put all these limit orders and cancel them. And if I put one up here, it creates a stop. I don't have to push a separate button like you do in NinjaTrader. It's just way easier to manage your positions over here. Did you fix Jay? I haven't touched him in a while. I don't know what I want to do. Like J2 seems like he could still have some success, but I don't know. I don't know if I should just go and go to the newer version of J and start testing that. I just haven't turned it on. That's what I'll do. Legions of Star Wars boys hurling money from their web developer jobs at girls dressing like their favorite cartoon characters and video game characters. Well, it really is a little weird, but I think that my understanding. Well, so there was a Reddit thread about this, right? Actually, you want to go and read the Reddit thread about it? Here you go. Ask Reddit asks, guys that pay for OnlyFans, why? Top comment was removed by the moderator. This guy says, for the articles. Okay. Oh, because that's why people would subscribe to Playboy before, right? I'm a patron of the arts. There's a bunch of joke comments because she loves me. That's not a serious one. I love Linus Tech Tips. Okay, so Linus Tech Tips has an OnlyFans, and he's one of the largest ones on there. Like, they created it as a joke, and it became one of the largest ones, right? There you go. I heard the perfect explanation recently. Yeah, porn may be easy to find for free, but those porn stars didn't sit behind me in math class and suddenly I understood everything. I really think that that's a major factor. I really think that that's a major factor is it's, like, it's a difference when it's some random girl that was just willing to prostitute herself out on the internet versus a celebrity or a classmate that you admired, right? A photo of her in a sundress made me obsessed, so I paid for a month. Sundresses apparently is the thing. Like, every time on Reddit it comes up, that's like what gets people going. some people want to give back for content, and I think that's certainly true. You know, we have here on this channel, we have a group of people that are just very dedicated and are here every day. And when you're in that kind of situation and it's that big of your life, you want to like pay the person back, even if it's in a teeny tiny little way, and it doesn't really matter. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from. And then, you know, with these OnlyFans, like the girls, they like talk to them a lot and stuff. Like every time that they post a picture, like they message each other and stuff like that. So personalization might be worth it for a lot of people. Free range farm to do. Oh my gosh. Fair deal. I don't know. The thing is like with the amount of money that they're making, it seems to me like it has to be more than just, you know, some people are stupid and you're always going to catch a certain number of stupid people out there that are willing to pay for stuff, right? It seems like it's like a real significant social phenomenon now. We need to deal with every threat as it exists in reality and not based on how we think it should work. Yeah, so I continue to see you make... how do I put this? Like, we've come in and we've said, here's the thing. There's a line that you don't cross. You don't infringe upon my constitutional rights. Yeah? And then you continue to make arguments that just completely ignore that. It's like the Constitution is too inconvenient for you, so you're trying to convince us to give up our constitutional rights. And that's never going to happen. You realize that the American view... so I saw this over in from somebody from Australia, and they're like, well, we don't have that. We don't have those rights in Australia. And I'm like, no. That's not the way that it works. These rights come from God. The American view of it is that these rights are endowed by our Creator, and you have those rights regardless of whether or not the government acknowledges them. And we would believe that all humans, regardless of what country they live in, would have those rights. Yeah? For you, any of your arguments to make any sense at all, you have to prove that we don't have those rights. That humans don't have inalienable rights, essentially. Right? You see why, like, so everything that you say is just like kicking the pricks. It doesn't convince anybody because it doesn't actually address the primary argument that they're making. Yeah. Treasuries did come back a little bit. They touched 134 and kind of stopped there. I am a little surprised that they did that U-turn that quickly. But I don't think that they didn't want to do it. They were pressured into doing it. But I would also still argue that probably the hit to their revenue was not as big as people think. Like, it wouldn't have been they go under. The 21st century marriage is now morphed into a website where a man pays to see from the distance. I tell you what, I keep seeing this on TikTok. I keep trying to bring it up to my wife, and I'm not sure if she like really cares or understands the argument that I'm making. But like, I see so many TikToks. It tries to show me men's rights TikToks and things like that, and a lot of guys out there saying things that I just think is like complete nonsense. So they're very much concerned they're very much concerned about the hypergamous nature of women, and that men should just not get married because it's not worth it to them. And there's a lot of arguments on TikTok about the proper way to date and find people in relationships, and why, girls only go for the top 20% of men, and all of the problems that kind of creates and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, ignore all of that for a second. Because here's the thing. That stuff is only a problem if the purpose of marriage is not to raise children. Seriously, think about it. If the purpose of marriage is to raise children, all of these other things fall into place, right? You have to get married in a one-on-one relationship with people so that you can have children. Okay? That means that you're going to want to get married. You're going to have to settle before you're 26 or so, or your chances of being able to have children are considerably reduced. Okay, and you can't sit and wait out your whole life waiting on some super rich guy that you think you're going to get, right? Solves that problem. Okay, for men, why should you give up half of your property? The reason that the commitment exists is so that we can guarantee that the children will grow up in a stable living situation. If the purpose of marriage is to raise children, everything falls into place and these problems go away. These problems only exist because marriage has been redefined as not about children. Just saying. Personal opinion, maybe a little bit too philosophical for the stream, but in the context of the OnlyFans thing, it's like, this is why these things are happening, probably. Gecko says, just to note, the Constitution does not indicate that these rights came from a higher being. You're right. I think that the inalienable rights, though, is, well, let's see here. Is that not in the Declaration? Is that only in the Declaration? First, I have to figure out how to spell inalienable rights. The Constitution doesn't say that it comes from God, but it does say that you can't deprive them of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yeah, okay. Join chat one day with a wig. I wouldn't be opposed to wearing a toupee for the kicks and giggles, but I just don't care to buy one. I wouldn't even know where to start, and that's just not something I can get all that interested in. I could sell my feet pics. You're selling yourself short, wear a wig and do a mukbang, just, I tell you what, this being a content creator can be such a, mind warping sort of thing, because when you really look at it, it's like this YouTube channel. I've had a lot of success with this YouTube channel, just doing my thing and making quality content. But I am not, it doesn't make enough for it to be like a primary source of income. I would love for that to happen, because there'd be a lot of things that I would be able to do then. I would like to be able to spend more time on it. Well, what do I got to do that? And the more that you get into it, the more that it's you, right? There's not some piece of equipment that I could buy or something like that is suddenly going to make this YouTube channel like massively popular. We could just get lucky. Could just be one video picks up in the algorithm and we get a ton of viewers and it shows it on the front page and, you know, it takes off. But in order for something to like really, really, truly take off, like you've got to be riding some big wave domestic trend. And because we're not doing stocks, it's unlikely to happen. Like the time for that to have happened is already past. And we didn't take off because we weren't doing stocks. We weren't doing meme stocks, right? And I don't want to be about meme stocks. The control. And this is the case for everything. This is the case for trading. You have a losing trade. For most retail traders, you could have done the opposite of what you had just done and maybe made money. I mean, if it had gone far enough. But a lot of the time that happens is you just got it the wrong way, you know? And you could change what you're doing and you would have made money versus like the only thing in that equation that has to change is you. And yet what it is that you actually have to do is, who can say? Who can really say, you know? It's like this really crazy thing. So you continue to come back and look at it and it's like, well, you could do this thing and you could do, where are you supposed to put your effort? You know? It's really difficult. If you want to make a soul living creating content, you have to sell I don't think that you have to sell your soul, but you are going to have to appeal to a certain common denominator, right? Like it is probably the case. It is probably the case that we have saturated the futures trading market. Or almost saturated the futures trading market. Yeah. Like the one thing I could do is make thumbnails that pretend like or change the way that I'm trading so it looks like I'm making money all the time. And, you know, and put big numbers on your thumbnails so that people click on them, right? I kind of feel like that would be selling portions. I mean, I'm not saying that somebody that does that, they're selling a portion of their soul, but I don't think that it should be allowed. I don't think that YouTube should allow it, but so I'm just not going to do it. You know, but we can spread out, right? Like we need to get back into this spread out. One of the things that's been so interesting though on TikTok was that people wanted to hear about order flow. So I started going over like really simple order flow stuff. And I mean, the stuff that I was talking about in order flow seems like so basic as to almost be trivial in my mind. You know, like I don't want to give away somebody else's content. So I'm very actively trying to like not be sharing the stuff that's like in the No BS day trading book, but it's just more like, you know, look, one side has less orders than the other. What does that tell you about where you should buy or sell at, right? It's just that kind of stuff. And they all did really well. Like, most of those videos, the algorithm only gave them like the 200 views, but then over time, they all get up to like 600 to 1,000 because the people wanted to watch the whole series. Right. So here I am, like, I want to talk about more general stuff to try and attract a more general audience, but they're more interested in the order flow. Okay. Sure, why not? And that did so well. You know, like part of it was like pen testing for making better YouTube videos. We're going to have to make some better YouTube videos about this. Okay, so here's the open. Kind of looks negative. PFE VAC is mandatory. Oh, didn't they already say that? It's kind of funny because you can get into this trap too, where it's like, oh, like there's no good content to make, but then like you're talking about trading and investing, like that you could spend your whole life talking about it. You know, the problem is just what is the thing that I'm going to say that's going to attract the most people. TikTok is a great place to try and to test things, though, for sure. So you get very immediate feedback on small experiments. So I've been putting a lot more effort into that. You know, like I got this video, put the video on this week. It's doing, actually, we should go and check on that. It just kind of did its usual numbers for the first day. So now the setup that I think that we have for it, I think that video could end up doing really well in the long run. But it might take a while to see that. Well, it's easing off pretty quickly, but what we really want to see is how many people are getting it from YouTube search. Okay, and we are on YouTube search apparently, so good deal. Just the main goal on that one. And about 25% not subscribed viewers. Oh, and then in engagement, do they watch? 38%. It's not nearly as high as we would like, but it's okay. And the people, there's like a pretty good big drop off at the beginning, but then it kind of goes sideways, so that's good. Start creating videos that are evergreen? What do you mean by that? Anyways. So but it kind of ends up being a funny thing because you can go around and you can see other people make like tons of money off of really dumb things. And so you're like, well, am I doing something wrong? Like, should I be going and doing this stupid thing or that stupid thing? You know, it's like that. See, the E-mini looks pointed down again, and the treasuries are getting a little agitated from it, right? Evergreen videos are the ones that people keep coming back to watch. Well, I feel like it kind of did that. I suppose that I need to make a series on order flow. But because that's the thing that I have the best content on, apparently. But I think I have a lot of videos on here that are videos that and that they have done well, actually. I think that they provide really, really good base information for people, and people are finding, and they continue to get a small amount of views every day. So that's good. It's just that doesn't get you to, you know, sole source of income. Like the one video that's done really, really well is the computer hardware video, right? So if I had like, you know, 5 videos of that level, then maybe we'd be in a different position, right? But that would be hard, I think. There was something special about that keyword. I don't know if I have a keyword or a subject that I can go into that would be quite as good as the hardware aspect of it. Okay. So yeah, they're still, they do seem like a little kind of poised for a risk off kind of a move. Apparently a pretty solid hurricane is going to be hitting the Texas side of the Gulf. Create a video. Well, I created a pretty generalized computer hardware one. You're gonna have to make another one, but probably next year. Right now, there's not much to say about it. You know what I saw yesterday was really interesting on the computer hardware space, by the way, that could be relevant to us at some point, is that this guy has created a video or a card that has an atomic clock in it. And this has been a thing for a while, but it used to be that a solution like that was like really expensive. And because I remember when I worked for Goldman, one of the projects that I did was on measuring the latency between everything, and getting all of the clocks synced up was a pretty big deal because you wanted to have them synced up close to the microsecond level. And there was like the change in the operating system that improved that protocol. But now they're saying you can get one of these cards and it will increase the latency, or it will improve the timing across the whole data center. And like they were saying that it was like doubling the amount of data they could pump through. And there was like some significant implications for gamers. Like if everybody had one of these and everybody's clocks were accurately atomic clock synced timings, then it could use that to like make your online games more accurate and things. But I also was thinking about it like for trading, like this whole issue with like your different feeds not being synced and everything. Well, they can put they could put better timestamps on it, and you could sort that sort of thing out better. So it's kind of an exciting thing. Dang, that moved. That would mean that the orders could be executed from the individual computer rather than from the broker's internal system. Well, no, but what it would mean is like when you get a timestamp from the exchange, it would match the timestamps on your own computer closely. What's the S&P 500 on? 44, 83, 25. I don't know. Look at that. The rate's coming all the way back up. Just like that, huh? It would guarantee. Well, it would still be based on what order the exchange received them, and you'd have to take into account the different gateways and all that nonsense. But I think one of the problems is like they don't give you the exchange side timestamps because they wouldn't necessarily be accurate. Like you would be getting a timestamp. When you get it, it might be from the future, and so they just don't bother sending it. Right. Yeah, I kind of bungled that. This has been a little frustrating. It's curious that it moved like that. Well, and the Treasury came back like really hard, but the 6J is not moving in correspondence with that. So that move in the Treasury, I think, should be triggering, certainly more significant because of that. But I don't actually see a reason for it to have been moving like that either. So, do we got anything else going on today? Is there like an auction that I'm not factoring in here? Is your e-mini data? Yeah. What's the date? The 25th? Okay, we do have 5-year. We do have 5-year today. Curious. Do you have the backstory on Mondays? No, I don't. It was it was options driven. I think we can pretty much assume that, but it was very excessive too. I mean, that was really like the degree to what they went and everything like really blew out all of the metrics and stuff. It was quite surprising. Yeah. Which I think is kind of weird, but I think that you're kind of getting this options driven gamma melt up. One of the things that happened, for instance, yesterday in particular, was like short covering. So like it was just like an old fashioned short cover, and when you put the options into it, and all of this these positions like come swinging back, and it just ends up in this massive long. But I don't know, like we're sitting here on the precipice of a regime change, right? After Jackson Hole, the regime in the market is going to be different, and it's likely to be not as easy as the current regime has been, right? Now, will it be significantly different is kind of the question. That depends on what Powell says on Friday, I guess. But now everything is sideways, yes. But that's this week is like the second quietest week of the year. Okay, like the week before 2 weeks before Jackson Hole tend to be extremely quiet. There will be more liquidity and activity after Jackson Hole, and then after the next jobs report, the non-farms, then the market really picks up. Okay. The only time of year that's like worse is like right after Christmas. So this is like when all Wall Street goes on vacation. Well, I tell you what, the E-mini is certainly constrained today, isn't it? I wonder how many folks are scalping and losing big. I don't know. I mean, the volumes have been pretty low, so I would hope that most serious traders realize that what's going on there with that. Hit the like button. You're not constrained from doing so. Thanks, Gwen. Oh, there you go. Now they're pushing again. Okay. It's been in a 19-point range for the last 36. Yeah. I mean, the core durable goods orders was a significant data point, but it didn't really move. To remember, tomorrow we get I think there's GDP, and then Friday there's PCE, but then there's Powell speaking. So there is I mean, I would say that at least in the treasury market, that things are a little bit better than they were yesterday, but not in the S&P 500. Now, maybe the treasury market makes another little significant push below the open here now, below 27. We'll see how the E-mini reacts to that. Let's reset things. Moderna final blinded analysis of phase 3 COVID study of Moderna COVID-19 vaccine shows 93% efficacy. Okay. Okay. Look at that. The 5 years. So the 5-year has a little bit of an iceberg there. So they're definitely at the bottom there. Now that they're through, let's see if they're able to fall through. Okay, iceberg in the 10-year too. Clicky click click over there in the D mini. How's their volume doing? It's actually not. The number of orders that are coming in is not actually terrible. Why are there so many limit sells? What, in the S&P 500? I don't know if I see anything. Well, they're actually, they're in the main contract. There are a couple of interesting low price levels. Probably what that is all about, though, is that there are probably some market making algorithms that are on vacation. So this algorithm, he has them at like every other price, right? And it would be under normal circumstances, other robots would fill it in. But since they're not there, you get a bunch of these prices that are just $250. Like that sort of a thing can happen. Glenn Greenwald. That's why I think Biden's lies about the likely outcome of withdrawal were so damaging. It gives the pro-war neocon ghouls an opportunity to claim vindication. If he had told them the truth about the Taliban takeover, evacuations could have happened in May. Maybe. But the issue is that a longer term, I think even if the withdrawal had been carried out effectively, that longer term the neocons will still have a very good case to say, I told you so, because China is stepping into that country now. Okay, so now that's curious. It seems to me like the interest rates and the bonds prices didn't match up there exactly on that tick. Probably because the 5-year came back there a little bit. No, I mean they were hitting the market at the high, were they? No, we haven't been at the highs of this since they opened. There was some decent volume up there. Maybe somebody wanted to go short. I don't know. I don't have a clear reason. One thing that the thing that I'm watching out for in the S&P 500 is where we're at in between yesterday's open and close, right? And I think that that's going to make a big difference to the options guys in terms of mark to market and all that stuff. So that's kind of the only thing that I'm really paying attention to over there. But since they're ranging in this spot at 83 and they're stuck there, like they've created a liquidity vacuum in that location, not as interested in that. But then this move to the lows in the treasury becomes really interesting to me. Now they'd need to fall through 27, right? They fall through 27, then it's much more significant. And I don't say that because I think that's support and this is this key level. It's going to work all the time. It's just that's the level at which it triggers some people that, I'm underwater in my position or whatever, or they've made a new low for the day, right? within this range, a lot of that action is probably just noise. Sorry, I missed some of your comments here. The Taliban told the Afghan women to stay home. Imagine if suddenly all the American women had to stay home. What would that be like? Oh, every woman in the country would go outside. Yeah, for sure. What are they going to do? Well, yeah, that's exactly what the Taliban has been doing, Ace. Like we talked about this the other day, they're literally saying if there are women in your home, put an X on your door, and then they come and they take the women and sell them into sex slavery. And if you just refuse to put the X on your door, they kill everybody in the house. And that's what they've been doing to non-Muslim homes in Afghanistan. It's crazy. They'll find me with empty gun. There you go. Okay. So some of the activity that I'm seeing in the 10-year here shows a lot more interest, but it also seems like that the orders in the Treasury are not the dominant factor here. For instance, we ticked up. I almost immediately saw a bunch of orders hit into the bid, and then a few orders hit into the offer. So like people are getting shuffled around here, but it appears to me that at least to some extent that the treasuries are not what's moving it, that it's more likely to be like it's acting more like a currency driven move. It's just that the currency is not completely in line with what it's been doing. I guess the currency is, the 6J is popping back a little bit though, so I need to keep my eye on this little thing right here. There's the E-mini going to new highs. Wow, that was awfully fast. They broke out of that. So we want to keep an eye. I'm not going to participate in the E-mini, but we're going to see now if that turns into another kind of self-driven rally or if it just fizzles out there. The way that it traded up there, it could be very possible for that to run. There was some strong market orders and chasing behavior on that there. Delta Airlines to impose a $200 a month fee on unvaccinated employees. What? Wow. $200 a month. I think they can do that. I mean, that's better than firing them, I suppose. Well, I was kind of trying to build something out there a little bit. I probably should have taken it off at 31 and a 31.2. Nah, that's the exact opposite thing they should do. They should fight for the kind of country they want instead of acting like they all don't have a rifle. I think you are vastly misinformed about what the situation on the ground in Afghanistan actually is. And it's totally understandable because I think that the president and the Democrat Party and the press have very grossly misrepresented the situation in Afghanistan. But imagine that you've been put there and you're in a military and you've been taught to fight, and these people have been fighting alongside you for years and years, and then all of a sudden they give up. They go, oh, it's not worth fighting anymore, we're going to leave. Oh, by the way, we're going to take all of the equipment and logistics that we've been training you to use. Okay. Oh, and by the way, the Taliban outnumber you 2-1. Okay, because they've been saying that the Afghan army was 300,000, but it actually turns out that it was smaller than the Taliban. That these provinces were saying that there was people on their payroll, but it was corruption. They were just taking the money and they weren't actually training soldiers. Okay. You would not put your life on the line in that situation. You know why? Because it's suicide. It's freaking suicide. The Afghan army did not stand a chance. It had nothing to do with them not wanting to fight. Initial reports definitely gave that impression, but the more and more we learn, the more we realize that we were really just leaving them out to dry and that they were doomed. That the Taliban was going to take over no matter what, and there was no point in trying to even fight them on it. And you know what? There was some soldiers that did try and fight, and guess what happened to them? They got captured and killed. So, way to go. You died. Hope it meant something. I'd rather commit suicide. But for those people, they don't necessarily become slaves. I mean, if you're a Christian, then it would be a different thing. But if you're a Muslim living in Afghanistan, you don't become a slave per se. Doesn't make sense to fight in that situation. Like, it really doesn't. Which is like really super messed up, right? So at which point I just have to ask, was 2,500 troops in Afghanistan really that big of a burden? Is it really that big of a burden, guys, to prevent what's going on there right now? Because I feel like it was a pretty trivial thing in the long run. Granted, there's been a lot of grifting in Afghanistan. Some companies have been just taking money and have... They haven't been responsible with taxpayer money over there, okay? But was 2,500 troops that big of a sacrifice? U.S. has helped create a future generation of terrorists? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if that becomes a safe haven for terrorists again or not. I kind of get the impression that the Taliban is going to be a more serious government this time around. When you trade, do you use a date or an indicator? What do you mean by that? What I do is very contextual, right? So, let me tell you my perspective right now. My perspective right now is on Friday, there's going to be a conference at Jackson Hole where the Federal Reserve Chairman is expected to talk about tapering asset purchases to some extent. The base case scenario by Goldman Sachs is that the taper will begin in November, that it would be announced in the September meeting, and then that they would start tapering in November. That's their base case. Okay. And that's some money that has been propping up treasuries that's not going to be there anymore. That's going to be some flow that's going to go away. So under that kind of a situation, we should be looking for interest rates to rise. So I'm sitting here looking at what it's doing, looking for a situation where maybe I can catch the interest rates on along like that and build something out. Now, when I see the move, it looks like it's being driven primarily by currency flows from the Japanese yen. So I'm not really seeing any kind of flow that would, be related to Jackson Hole on Friday, right? And so that's how I do the read. How can you abandon people that are fighting? Well, I don't know. That's what Joe Biden did, though. Still don't understand why they don't just clean the... Well, like that's the crazy thing, is that with the number of troops that they put in there and everything, they could just absolutely decimate the Taliban for good right now. Like this would be the if the president just all of a sudden changed his mind and then didn't tell anybody and striked at the Taliban at that time, then they would be done. They'd be done. But he just doesn't want to be in Afghanistan. Seems that Biden messed this up. Well, but to the point of like what started this conversation, which was that tweet, right? The question is this: is it just that Biden messed up, or is it that the policy of leaving Afghanistan was truly just a really bad policy? And I would argue that this going so poorly bolsters the case of the Hawks, but it's going to be when you see what happens to Afghanistan 1 to 5 years from now, and they're going to be very repressed, and they're going to be helping China, and China is going to be extracting minerals, and it's going to be helping China build up and try and take over Taiwan. Then it's really going to be like this was a really poor decision, right? That's I think the more interesting question now, because I mean, what are we going to do now, right? Like Biden's president, he did what he did. He's made the deal with the Taliban to like get out of there by a certain date. So you get out of there by that certain date, and then what? You know what I mean? It's like what we can't change anything on that. So it's that's why I'm more interested in talking about the long-term foreign policy implications, because I think my takeaway from this is that it takes more than 20 years, and that you're better off putting that effort in for, let's say, 100 years to solve a situation like that when it's only 2,500 troops, because the alternative is just so awful. But we'll see how people turn out on that, I suppose. The Biden administration thinks that after this is all done, that everybody will forget about it and they'll all be super glad that we're not in Afghanistan anymore. But I don't think that that's going to happen either. Like, the thing that is really interesting about this is like, look at the way that foreign leaders are reacting to this, right? The foreign leaders have not been shy at all about criticizing the Biden administration. Like politicians saying, yeah, you guys should impeach him, like that sort of a thing. That is like way, okay. Biden has lost the support of the global elite with this decision. He has lost the support of the global elite with this decision. And like him resigning is I think a real possibility. What interest are we protecting in Afghan? Well, first of all, we're preventing a genocide there, so that's for starters. But then there are resources there that China wants that we don't want China to have, and it gives us a foothold in that region. There are some strategic reasons to be there. Now, the counter to that on the strategic reasons would be that we cannot afford to commit resources in Afghanistan. We need to be saving those for Taiwan. Okay, that's a fair argument. Now you're getting beyond my ability to analyze it, though. Now you need to talk to a foreign policy expert. But I personally, when it's genocide, it's like I just can't understand. When Donald Trump was in charge, I see so many leftists, people on the media talking about Donald Trump is gonna create a genocide, like he wants to kill all of the black. This is like this absolutely ridiculous assertion. Okay, but then when actual genocide is happening in China, they don't care. And now here in Afghanistan, because the United States pulled out, actual genocide is happening there, and people are just kind of like nonchalant about it. How is that? Well, there may be strategic reasons to be there. There are no moral reasons to be there. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Preventing genocide is not a moral reason. Thousands of people are going to be systematically hunted down and killed in Afghanistan. Like you guys realize that, right? Like it's already happening. They're killing them in the streets. They have lists of the people to kill. Preventing what genocide? Are you for real? Do you not know how the Taliban operates? They go to a town and they say that's a Christian town, right? And they say, okay, everybody here, if there are women in your house, you need to put an X on it. And then they come to your house and they take all of the women in that house and they make them sex slaves. If you don't put the X on your house and they find out that you have women there, then they just kill everybody. Is that what Rachel Maddow told me? There are Christians in Afghanistan, Adam. There are some pretty big sell side limit orders up there at 87, isn't there? I'm not sure if I would read that one right there as like hard absorption, like I should sell into that, sort of a thing. It's probably more likely just there was a lot of business down here and now they're trying to rebalance back up here. Like what, 100? And I mean, it's kind of a little bit more of like what do we say, an ideological genocide, right? Like anybody that is not in favor of a radical Islamic, how do we say it? Ultra conservative state or whatever you would say, as basically being killed. Right? First woman governor in Afghanistan. What did she say? I'm basically sitting here waiting for the Taliban to come and kill me. You guys don't believe me that genocide is happening in Afghanistan? Okay. I'll go and I'll provide more sources for that tomorrow. You know what's something I really hate is when news organizations on Twitter will, they'll post a story and they're really late on the story and then they tweet about it as though it's like a breaking headline. Here, the local KSL 5 TV station in Utah tweeting about the Supreme Court saying the Biden administration violated federal law and trying to end a Trump era program, forces people to wait in Mexico while seeking. That was news last night. Don't treat it like it's breaking news. A says, I believe genocide is and will happen in Afghanistan. Okay. So then for you, at what point is it worth it or not worth it to keep 2,500 troops in there for another 20 years, let's say? Another 20 years, we have to maintain at least 2,500 troops there. When does that become worth it or not become worth it? Is it like if 1,000 Christians are murdered, or just let's Afghanis, because it's it's a diverse group of people that are being killed by the Taliban. If it's like 5,000 people that get murdered by how many people do the Taliban have to murder before it's worth it to just keep our 2,500 troops there? It's a horrible situation, but nothing. Well, but there was something that we could do about it. We could stay there for another 20 years. Right. Okay, the former president had set a date for when you were going out. Yes, but Biden changed that date. This argument that they had no choice because of what Donald Trump did is complete nonsense. He could have canceled the whole thing. In fact, the military was basically acting like they thought that that's what was going to happen, that he wasn't going to have the guts to go along with it. He would have to stay there forever? Okay, sure. Why not? Forever. I am willing to commit my tax dollars to have 2,500 troops in Afghanistan forever. I'm willing to take that extreme position, sure. It doesn't really answer the question that I'm asking, is because this is going to happen again. Like, you realize that, right? That's the interconnectivity of the world is such that there's going to be a situation where you're going to be entangled in a foreign conflict and you're basically keeping the peace there. And how long do you stay there is the question. I wish we'd spend more time trying to educate, but they did educate. I mean, I think that's like a completely different issue. Like, here's the thing that we talk about, like, what were we pushing in Afghanistan? I mean, look, it was like women empowerment and all of these sorts of things that they were pushing in Afghanistan. They did do all of that. They made great strides in those respects. The problem was that there was a armed people there the whole time called the Taliban that were basically saying, we're going to wait out until you are no longer here, and then we're going to take over, right? How do you deal with that? No, the issue on that front was not trying to change people's religious views, because that's just not very effective or possible. No, I think that the real problem was like the corruption and stuff, right? How do you deal with the corruption? You go and you say, okay, go and build a military. All of these provinces, you need to get a certain number of people. And then they said, okay, here, give me all the money. We did it. And they didn't actually have the soldiers, right? And it went all the way up to the top, just widespread corruption. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Because that's what kills us in these. That's what killed us in Vietnam too. Was that the local leader there in Vietnam was a shithead. But it's going to be a problem. It's going to continue to be a problem. You're along now looking for 4490. I hope you get it. It might take a while. you can tell that I'm pretty distrustful of this market, aren't I? Just because it's so slow. Like, it seems like another 2 points should be nothing, but in this market it could be another hour. I don't think it will. This is so close, and they've been shoving into highs, and they've pushed through a couple of key points. 88.5 is going to be a little difficult, but once they get through that, 90 should be easy. How does one read about the deaths of Afghans under CIA leadership? The point is, stop going to these countries. I think you're going to run into a situation where it makes sense to go in again. My kid is going hungry because I'm thinking, wait, their kids aren't already at school? You know what happened with my kid last night? He slept in his own bed. Oh, it was amazing. I'm still tired though. I don't think I got enough sleep. And they're hitting into 26.5. So do you see here the bonds and the interest rates are not 100% coupled? Like 31.2 did go off for 1 point. Well, but there's another iceberg at 26.5. Okay. If your baby is sleeping in their own bed, it's time to make another one. I don't think that my wife wants another baby. I wouldn't mind having another baby, and I think we could support it, but I don't know if her body could handle it. You know, if she was perfectly healthy, maybe it wouldn't be such a big deal, but you know, when she had her first kids, she didn't have the thyroid problems, and the thyroid problems. You can't stop now. Wait, did they come back hard? Oh, they did. I'm sure that tomorrow will be a little bit better, but you know, it's okay. If you just scratch this, fine, right? Market will be a lot better next week. You got next week, and then on the 3rd, next Friday, is the jobs report, and then you're into full September, and then we'll have a real market again. No more of this summer BS. Okay, now they really took 26 there. That looks really strong, in fact. That's enough that I may need to recalibrate here. America will never invade a nuclear power? Maybe. Okay, so like, for instance, what if North Korea collapsed? What if North Korea collapses, China comes in and starts an armed resistance to oppose the reunification of North and South Korea? right? How long are you willing to stay there on that one? Oh, that's a realistic scenario, isn't it? Because China definitely doesn't want to have a strong U.S. power like that close to them, right? They want a buffer zone. But if North Korea collapsed, what would you do? What would you do? Huh? How long? We've been in North Korea now for 60 years. We have forces there. The only difference between North Korea and Afghanistan is that, they've been successful. That government has been successful, and they've built a great economy. South Korea is more likely to collapse first. What? Oh man, you're gonna have to explain that one, because that sounds crazy to me. I don't believe that for a second. South Korea has done so well. They've been so successful. Nah, I don't think that South Korea is more likely to collapse than North Korea. Like, South Korea has a vibrant economy, and they make all of our TVs. Well, not TV. They make my phone. They make my phone in South Korea. And then in North Korea, they're like starving to death. South Korea is willing to fight. If the U.S. pulled out, South Korea would fold in 3 weeks. I think you're probably right, AO. It was just like in Afghanistan. If the United States all of a sudden decided, you're not worth helping anymore, we're just going to pull out. I think that the South Koreans would have that's a similar kind of reaction. It would you got to understand that the way that the United States went about it undermines, literally undermines them, right? Jay Biondo having a conversation with Anthony Cordelli about spoofing and what is being done to prevent this type of bad. I made a TikTok about spoofing yesterday, but it actually didn't do all that well. Normally people really like to talk about spoofing, but maybe it was wrong. I'm finding, you know what people really like? Stories. Gotta tell more stories. Well, I have a story. Maybe I should do a story today. I'll do a story today on TikTok. You watch. It'll be great. It'll get so many views. It's going to be like another 10K TikTok. Do you think it would be good for humanity if the U.S. pulled out of South Korea or Israel? No. Well, I mean, the U.S. isn't really in Israel, but it'd be an awful thing if the U.S. pulled out of South Korea, right? But that's the whole point that I'm trying to make, is that the argument from what I would call the doves is that it's just not worth it for the United States to get involved in these foreign entanglements. And the argument that I'm trying to make is that if the U.S. is already involved, it makes a lot of sense for them to stay involved, and for very, very long periods of time, like decades and decades. It seems to me like these people over in the foreign policy establishment actually do know a thing or two about their job, and that we have not paid enough heed to the warnings that they've been giving us all these 20 years. Worth it is not an appropriate question. Is it moral? Is it who? I mean, you're trying to make a value-based argument where not everybody might share the same values, right? I think that it is moral. I think that it is 100% moral to have stayed in Afghanistan. It would be 100% moral to stay in South Korea and fight the Chinese and have another Korean War. I think that the first Korean War was moral and worth it. Is it contradictory? Well, I'm not a libertarian, so. America causes more disability and instability. I think that what we should really be doing. Here's what I think. I think that what would be the more productive conversation, but we can't get to that conversation until we come to an agreement about like what kind of commitments should we actually make and not make. Okay. But once we've come to a conclusion on that, I think that the real discussion needs to be about how we go about nation building, because it very much seems to me that the way that the United States government goes about nation building in some cases really ends up being negative. That in areas where there was already a lot of corruption and greed, it just enables that corruption and greed. Because it's basically like you come in and you're just giving people money, and then there's they don't have to do anything with it, right? And so it almost becomes more likely that you're going to get a president of Afghanistan that's a complete idiot and is corrupt and that doesn't get the support of the people, or like we had in Vietnam, you know? Like, we need to fix that. How do you fix that? That's a very complicated. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Maybe that's why we don't talk about it, is because it's such a complicated thing that mere plebeians like ourselves that aren't really well versed in government and, oh wow, that was a really strong sell, aren't really well versed in government and foreign policy and things like that, that we wouldn't even, we don't even know enough to even have that kind of a conversation, you know? But I would really like to see America get better at nation building. Man, Americans can be so arrogant. Yeah, sure. I'm willing to be arrogant if it saves lives and makes the world better. I mean, the thing is there's this kind of assertion that not everybody in the world wants freedom. I don't think that that's actually accurate. I think it's just that it's more difficult than just saying, okay, you have your freedoms and then go out and do it, right? There are existing power structures and so forth that you have to deal with. And it seems like that the U.S. response doesn't do that very well. Well, that was a move. Now, the 24, interestingly enough, was kind of a level that I was watching, because on the volume profile there was a like a pivot there of sorts. Oh, was it? No, do I have it? How do I? No, yes, no, there it was. 24 and a half. Okay, was a key level from like the 13th. So like that was a Friday, right? Yeah, that was a Friday. That's where they closed from 1 week ago. So we're in the position now that all of these guys that have been long the treasuries from the past 2 weeks are underwater. But I would expect there to be a little bit of a skip there, but under my scenario, I want to hold this. In fact, I'm going to try and catch, we'll try and let this go, and I'll take one contract off, and then I'm going to try and hold the other contract until Friday. How many people were killed under U.S.? I don't know. That's a fair question. But do you understand the kind of like the argument that I was trying to lead you down into, though, Caleb, where it's like, how many people have to die until it's worth it for us to come in and do something? It's kind of like a really silly like line to try and draw, right? Well, if 10,000 people are dying, then maybe it's a big enough atrocity that we do something about it. But otherwise, like our foreign policy, we can't use that kind of a metric to make our foreign policy decisions, right? Like the reality of this situation was that there was a decision that was made to go into Afghanistan and take out the Taliban, right? And that involved and then okay, so that's a decision that I don't think you can really change, right? The next step after that was that we're going to go and nation build in Afghanistan. So would it have made sense to go in and depose the Taliban and then just kind of left and let the warlords figure it out afterwards? That wouldn't be very responsible, right? But that's maybe a decision that I'm gonna let you change, right? Well, okay. In my mind, I don't think that makes much sense. So then we're there for 20 years. Now the argument that you're making is after we've been there 20 years and they're very dependent on us and it's been working pretty well, there's no soldiers dying or anything like that, but the country is definitely not ready to survive on its own. We should just get out. And that's the one where I'm saying I think that in the long run, the hawks on that side of the issue are going to be proven correct. Like, I think that the realization that it, particularly power brokers in the world are coming to right now is that these guys in the foreign policy establishment that everybody has been uber skeptical about, saying, oh, you're just trying to support the military industrial complex and we shouldn't trust you. Those guys, they actually do know a thing or two, and that we need to have a president that actually understands foreign policy and has a responsible foreign policy. Like that's the thing that I think is happening, right? So that's why that's why that particular point is interesting, because which way, what the real, because I'm willing to hear you out that we shouldn't be there anymore. Like we maybe we could have pulled out more responsibly, but we shouldn't be there anymore, right? I'm just saying at the moment, I think that side is losing, certainly among the people that matter. And I personally am leaning that way as well, right? And I heard you mention one example of Tony. Well, but I've just gone through like the whole situation where it's like, look, here's this decision, like you did the right thing, all of these steps up until Biden said, let's pull out. Right. So like, was pulling out the right decision? I don't think it was. I really don't. The way that he did it, there was then another decision, and then the decisions that he made after he had done it and it was such a disaster is another thing. Did you time me out? No, I didn't do it. I didn't necessarily. Sorry, I can't read every comment. I didn't actually see you. You grew up in it. Where did you grow up, AO? Al-Qaeda was the CIA, sure. So do you know where the Taliban came from? So here's where the Taliban came from. They're having this huge war against the Russians, and they had all of these orphans, and Pakistan said, hey, we'll take your orphans. And then the equivalent of the CIA in Pakistan trained them, and basically trained them with the intention of coming in afterwards and taking over the country, so to ensure that there would be a religiously conservative government in Afghanistan. And that's where the Taliban comes from. I didn't know that before this week. I found it incredibly interesting piece of history. America pulling out basically helps China Biden's support. Biden's a puppet to higher powers. Yeah. We don't have any proof that he's a puppet to a higher power, but yeah, what he's been doing has certainly been helping China, isn't it? Doesn't it? So you're admitting, who cares if it came about as a result of U.S. meddling? I mean, come on. Russia was in there taking over the whole country. We're supposed to just let Russia annex Afghanistan, I guess. Afghanistan would be a communist country now. Maybe it would have been better, actually, because communism collapsed, didn't it? I don't know. That's an interesting timeline to think about, where we just let Russia take control of Afghanistan. See, what I think is going to happen is people are going to turn around and next election, they're going to say, yes, we want change, but we don't want a foreign policy dunce anymore. And you know what? Like, when you start going down the short list, that rules out a lot of people. Okay? No chance that Bernie Sanders becomes president in that scenario. I think Bernie is too old anyways, but right? Who do you have on the Democrat Party that is a really considered knowledgeable and proficient in foreign policy? Not sure. We have a few on the, a few that try to be that, at least. Senators on the Republican side, right? Like Marco Rubio is definitely in that space. And I would say that Ted Cruz at least understands what's going on, even though I wouldn't say it's a strong point. Say ZB is strong on the offer. When they took those bids out, it was like so aggressive. And really, with the way that they took out these lows, it really makes you wonder how they got all the way up back to 134 even, doesn't it? Why is it that the guys that came in and just absolutely crushed this were waited until then to do it? So I guess we'll never know on that one. There's no way we're ever going to figure that one out, but it sure would be useful if we did know. I believe the countries can be left to sort. Well, I feel like in general that's true. It's just I understand also that sometimes the situation is more complicated than that. Like, I don't think that we should have let Korea sort out its own issues, and that South Korea shouldn't be a thing. I just can't say that. I freaking love Korea, dude. One of these days, I don't know, man. Here's the thing. I have the ability today to go and travel and live and basically anywhere in the world that I want. All I have to do is pay for the hotel. And in some of those places where you can get those mini hotels and I could go to Korea next week if I really wanted to. But then it's like, yeah, but then what am I going to do with my workout? Like, I'll miss my workouts. It's like and I miss trading. Like, those are the first things on my mind, and I just don't want to go on vacation. But I would really like to go to Korea. I want to go to Korea, and I want to watch a StarCraft remastered match. That's what I want to do. We'll wait until Flash comes back. We have to see Flash play live. Go to Korea. And you're going to tell me that we should have just let the communists take Korea? Come on. And then where would StarCraft be, guys? Think about that one. Important things, right? I really wish that it was as simple as saying, well, we should just never get entangled in a foreign entanglement ever, and we just focus on ourselves, and that would be like it in the end of it. But Like, the world is so much more complicated than that, right? American power comes, especially in the last 10 years, very much in part because of the position that it plays in the world power structure. And yeah, that includes, to some extent, its powerful military and how it gets involved in things. We didn't have that before World War II, by the way. And it was because of how we ramped up during World War II and then everything that we've had since that has allowed America to be the sole quote-unquote superpower, right? Now, I know that a lot of people out there would prefer that the U.S. isn't the sole superpower in the world, but I don't think that would be better for the world. Certainly wouldn't be better for the world if China was the sole superpower, I'll tell you that much. Like, the world is complicated. Most of these problems are double-sided. Like, it's not like a situation where if we go back and we change this one decision that everything would be hunky-dory. I feel like a lot of people kind of argue like, I mean, I guess that's kind of an assumption that you're making, but like, that's the way that some of you guys are kind of talking, is like, well, if we had never gotten involved in Afghanistan and this other thing, then like everything would be great. And I don't think that that's the case. The world would be much less stable than it is today, and the world would be a much more dangerous place, and it would be a more dangerous place for Americans, and we wouldn't necessarily be in a better off economic position either because of that. But if these were, well, that would be great if they were unnecessary, but 11,000 evacuated on U.S. planes in the last 24 hours. Wow. Reading Twitter here. So the 5-year auction is at 11. You gotta wonder. So one of the things is that when we get moves like this, it's often like badunk, and then it will just go. Like, it's not quite giving me the thing like it's done. There might be a bigger bounce though. There might be a bigger bounce, so we should keep an eye on that. World corrupt politicians serve a function that is to starve off. You really got to wonder though, like what are the things that we can change in our systems that can reduce corruption? I think that the United States does a pretty good job at it, but it's not perfect, is it? It's not a good thing that politicians basically have to spend all of their free time raising funds for campaigns, for instance. It doesn't necessarily mean that people should be limited in how they can contribute and things like that, but we've got to stop the escalating PR war in political campaigns, don't we? We could make campaigns better. We could as a people, we could teach our children, and we could adopt certain cultural values around elections and how we select our candidates and so on and so forth, that would maybe help and make it us less likely to get corrupt politicians. You know? Afghanistan is another failed state like Libya, Syria, and Iraq. Well, this much I'll tell you. The story in Afghanistan is not over after the Taliban take complete control, will it? Probably there's going to be a civil war there. Who knows how long that goes on. The moderate Muslim psyche defaults back to fundamental. Can you expand? You're trying to tell your Nasdaq trader, you're trying to teach me something that I think you would have an insight into because that's where you live. But I don't think I understand what you're saying. World corrupt politicians serve a function that is to starve off terrorism. The moderate Muslim psyche defaults back to fundamental ideas when the going get tough. Okay, so then what do you do about it? Or lately, well, I don't think that the U.S. is going to be a failed state, but short term, I have some concerns. I have some concerns about this market. Like, it's just like a cow. Like, it's just the fat-tailed nature of this market is just like really scary to me. Am I too worried about fat tails? It holds my performance back. And I just need to plow into it, and then when the bad thing happens, you take the hit, and it's fine, and it doesn't matter. I don't know, because it seems like the correct thing to do here is to just keep buying, and that's like the most likely thing to happen, is that the S&P 500 is just going to keep pushing up, and that we're going to have another 10-year long bull market or something like that. But I look underneath of the surface, and I see this house of cards. It's like, one day you just have one bad week. You change one thing, you pull out the monetary stimulus, okay? And then you have one bad week on the options, and all of a sudden this thing that's been going up and up and up and up and up flips around and will just go down and down and down and down, just like during the pandemic. Because frankly, during the pandemic, I think that they went lower than they should have, and it was driven by speculation, just like the speculation is driving us higher right now. They need to go and they need to change the mark-to-market rules. So we're going to continue. This is going to continue to be very risky. We're going to be very susceptible to, volatility spikes, essentially. The sun is going to blow up, but it doesn't make it a good short. Right. Well, I talked about this quite extensively with Gary Norton when I put that video out next Monday. So let's come back to that one. But after having that discussion, I because I think he kind of had really similar views on it to me. But like since then, I've kind of come back and I've been like, yeah, but have I been too risk averse really? Probably yes. Like what happens is I get into this mode where, I want to be disagreeable. Like I see the whole market doing something and I don't want to jump on. When in reality, like stepping in and taking the risk would be a really positive thing for me. If the U.S. can help with education and jobs, great. Otherwise, there will be conflicts. It certainly seems to me that the culture of the area makes a significant difference, right? We were able to build a good government in South Korea, and I think a lot of that had to do with the Korean people and their values. And the way that the United States goes about things in nation building, it works in Asian countries, but it doesn't work in Muslim countries, right? Because we haven't had a success with that in any of the Muslim countries that we've been involved with. What happens? What if there was a civil war in Saudi? Like there's this Yemen thing going on, right? Like what if that fell apart? Oh, what a mess. That'd be awful. Is that really I'm sitting here thinking in my head, like, that's a realistic, but maybe it's probably not very realistic, is it? Well, guys, we had some good discussions today. We'll see if I can try and get this to run and swing it, huh? I'm a little excited because this is, I haven't really ever had the opportunity to do this. And so far, everything is proceeding as I have foreseen. Okay. Demonstrate PC feminism values. Well, maybe, yeah. I would love to know more. A Muslim's perspective on how the United States could more effectively nation build in Islamic countries. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Should be good. And then Friday. Remember, Friday is the big one. Okay. Friday is big day for us. Okay. In the meantime, stay profitable, friends.